The tree of life is a symbol that we see showing up in many, many different cultures all across the world. And this is because this is a very powerful and very relevant symbol in relation to the human species and the development of our species as a whole. And not only do we see this idea of the tree of life, but we also see the idea of the underworld showing up in many different cultures as well. And we can look at the underworld as the roots of the tree of life. Now, in the more so modern age, most people identify the tree of life with this structure right here. And this structure is associated with Jewish mysticism, but is actually much older than the form that you see it in within the diagram that most of you are probably to some degree aware of. And whenever there's life, there's also going to be death. And whenever there's death, there's also going to be a rebirth, or there's also going to be life. So the opposite of the tree of life is actually known as the tree of death. And in our more so modern times, we call this the klippothic tree. So here we have the tree of life, and the roots of this are the klippothic tree, meaning the roots of everything you know to be in existence, whether it's in your personal life, within the world at large, or the mass collective consciousness, or even our solar system, galaxy, and universe, is rooted within the tree of death, or is rooted within the klippothic tree, because the tree of life and the klippothic tree are different polarities of the same thing. You can think of the tree of life being like the trunk, and this trunk has branches that extend to the heavens. But for there even to be branches, and for there even to be a trunk, well, there has to be roots. And the tree of death is a representation of these roots. It's the deepest roots of our primal history as human beings, the deepest roots of the structure of our solar system, our galaxy, the universe, and the multiverse in general. We live in a multiverse of light. And what light actually is just simply form. It is what has come into formation. An alien, a galaxy, a star, a black hole, whatever it is that's coming into form would be considered polarized light. And the darkness is the primordial chaos roots that light actually comes from. So most people in the occult space understand what it means, or to some degree, let me back up. They have an understanding that there are those of us that initiate into the tree of life. But the roots of this tree of life are actually going to be in the underworld. They're actually going to be the klippoth, and the klippoth has been heavily demonized, and in conventional Kabbalah, the klippoth is considered to be something that you want to stay away from. It's considered to be the stagnant leftovers that bear no fruits. But the truth is, the fruits of the tree of life, which just represent the power and potential you can gain by initiating through it, the fruits of the tree of life are originating within the roots, which is the klippoth. Now, klippoth translates to shells, peels, and husks. And the shells, as I like to look at them, are actually the shell that we create around ourselves. The shell that is actually comprised of these different fragmentations that we have been through throughout our life experience. And we begin this fragmentation process from very early childhood. And what happens is we go through trauma. We don't know how to process that trauma and the emotions that are associated with it. So what we do is we fragment from the emotion, which is also fragmenting from the true self at the same time, and we create an identity or many identities and many different parts of us that are also holding ways of thinking, belief systems, and perceptions to shell us away from that trauma and the emotions associated with it. And we do this to actually survive the trauma. But this comes at a major price. From an initiatory, esoteric perspective, we cannot actually authentically experience the tree of life and what it represents if we don't unshell ourselves from these different fragmentations that we filter our life experience through, and we identify with being us. So once again, the fragmentations can take the form of different identity masks that we identify with and we wear at different periods of our life. So when we're going through the tree of death as a form of self-development, when we're opening the spheres, so you see how there's, wrong way. You see how there's spheres here? Well, these same spheres are on the tree of death, but they're representing the negative aspect. So the same way, if you were to initiate into the Sephiroth, you would open up these energetic centers. This is what you're also doing when you're working with the tree of death. But what you're doing is you're opening up the sphere that represents the shell, or the shells, because you're working through the spheres, the shells that you have created for yourself that are comprised of these different fragmentations that you have been through. And you create the shell to actually suppress the negative emotional resonance and association with all of these different traumas that you have experienced throughout your life. And the reason why we initiate into the tree of death is because those suppressed emotions, traumas, and those fragmentations that are the shells, they act as an interfering, we could say, pattern or frequency inside of us that keeps us from being able to channel the source energy consciousness, which in fact is what we always were. But because we went through these different fragmentations and we suppressed this emotional resonance inside of us, now we're out of alignment with that source energy state of being. So when we're going into the clip-off, we are going into our roots to eventually experience the fruits of the tree of life. So we have the tree of life and the tree of death, and we can't have one without the other because they're different polarities of the same source energy. But the paradox is to fully experience the fruits of the tree of life and the beauty that it holds. We have to work through the shadows of the clip-off and understand that the clip-off is a representation of what we are on a more primal level. In fact, the clip-off actually holds the deepest roots of human civilization inside of it. So when we're going into the clip-off, we're connecting with our own, we could say, antiquity. We're connecting with the primal root of what we are, and even the shadow of the earth that is holding the memories of the very first days of Earth even being an existing planet. So what I'm explaining to you gets really, really deep. And there is a lot of value in initiating through the clip-off, but it's also a very difficult process because you're working through all of these suppressed emotions that you spent your life actually creating this shell to keep you away from. So not only are these emotions coming to the surface in sometimes a very intense way, but you're also dying to the perceptions, the ways of thinking, the belief systems, and the identities that you have created as a part of that shell, which is meant to keep you away from those emotions. Because, once again, when you were a child, it's the only way that you could survive those energies that were inside of you. It's the only way that you could actually survive your trauma and be able to function in the world, function around your parents, function in different relationships, function in school, and even grow up as an adult to, just survive in society, having a job and having different relationships and things of that nature. If you had your trauma and all of the emotions associated with it flooding to the surface without having the education of even knowing how to work with it, well, of course, that would be a very undesirable situation, and that would just cause more damage to your system. So this is why you created these protective adaptations in the form, when we're looking at it from an initiatory perspective, in the form of what is known as the shells of the Qliphoth. But when you're initiating into the Qliphoth, you're affirming to yourself that, okay, I created these fragmentations to survive my trauma, but now I'm willing to process it and I'm willing to go into it. And that is exactly what is going to take place when you're going through the Qliphoth. There's going to be a death energy that is now initiated into your being and into your life experience that is going to dissolve the artificial programming. It's going to dissolve your identification with the protective adaptations. And because you created these adaptations to suppress these emotions, now all of these emotions are going to come flooding to the surface so you can meet them with the power of your awareness, which is very powerful, and begin depolarizing this negative mass inside of you that has actually been running your system and even creating physical realities that are just a reflection of all of these suppressed aspects of self that are now coming to the surface. Now, the Qliphothic tree is going to be governed by the negative aspects of these planetary energies. So Earth, the moon, Venus, Mercury, the sun, Jupiter, Mars, Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto. So we're getting the negative aspects of those planetary energies. And governing the spheres of the Qliphoth are actually going to be extraterrestrial forces that most people work with as demons, but demon is actually just a term that was thrown on these ancient primal gods and goddesses that have played a major evolutionary role in the development of the human species, which is why people used to work with and worship these entities. And these entities are extraterrestrial beings that are holding the entire energetic current of that time period in which they were worshipped during human history. They're holding that energetic current when you're connecting with these energies. So in many ways, it's like going into a past timeline and even beginning to surface the suppressed energies of that timeline, bringing it into your current timeline, processing it, and turning it into your power and your potential. So these are ancient gods and goddesses that are governing these different Qliphothic spheres, and these are also aspects of your own subconscious mind that you are stimulating, because everything at its core is just one thing that has created many things. So I'm an aspect of you, and you're an aspect of me, and these ancient gods and goddesses are just aspects of all of us, and they're aspects of human history because they played a very important role in the development of consciousness. So when you're working with them, there's going to be certain experiences that are initiated into your life to help you have a better understanding of yourself and a deeper understanding of your primal roots as a human being, and even your primal roots as a soul, which is outside of the human condition. Or actually, let me back up a little bit, is predating the human condition. So you're actually the pure consciousness that animates your physical vessel. You're not just a human being, you're much more than that. And you start connecting with the roots of what you are when you're initiating through the Klipothic tree. So this is a very powerful process of initiation, and it's a very transformative process of initiation, but it's also very difficult because you're not only working with these suppressed energies that you've been shelling away inside of you or shelling yourself away from, but you're working with primal extraterrestrial consciousness that can have a very dissolving effect on the human psyche, and it kind of invites this current of death energy into your life, hence the tree of death. And this death energy will begin dissolving things that are not necessarily in alignment with who and what you are on that deeper soul level. The tree of the tree of life represents unity, and the tree of death is going to actually represent separation. But the paradox is by it showing you all of these fragmentations and all of these separations that are existing inside of you that are keeping you from embodying the source consciousness, you're connecting with the source energy in a very profound way, and you're also seeing the holiness in the shadow aspects of reality that most people are in avoidance to, and are actually keeping most people from having an authentic connection with the source energy within themselves. So when you're going through the tree of death initiations, you are going to be met with all of these shadow aspects of yourself and all of these different aspects and energies inside of you that are keeping you in a space of separation. And what can be really challenging is these fragmentations, energies, and separations are going to show up in other people that at times can come at you or come into your life in a very challenging way, maybe even playing the role as an enemy. But this is all a part of the initiation, and that person is a self-designed trigger that you're manifesting to bring up these heavily suppressed emotions that are existing in your being, and also to bring a death energy into your life to where you're dying to certain belief systems, identities, perceptions, personas, relationships, and unhealthy coping that you were very attached to. By dying to these attachments and letting whatever needs to leave your life, you are setting the stage to be a completely different version of yourself than you're probably used to being, a more authentic version of you who is holding that source energy resonance, and you're channeling this into your life experience in general, and you're just setting the stage to live a completely different life by letting whatever needs to leave your life. By dying and letting go of these different attachments, you are now truly living, probably for the first time in your entire life. But this can be a difficult process because it's very easy to want to re-identify with the attachments, to re-identify with the illusions, to re-identify with the unhealthy relationships that even though maybe they weren't healthy, they were familiar to us. So the tree of death can be a very challenging experience, but by dying, we are truly setting the stage to live our lives as the most authentic version of us that we've ever been. So this video is not meant to be extensive by any means, and I'm going to be making extensive content on the tree of death. But I think I'm going to end the video right here. If you watched all the way through, thank you for being here. I appreciate you very much, and I will see you in the next video.